That class action lawsuit filed in federal court this month alleging that firefighting foam chemicals contaminated private water wells near what used to be Reese Air Force Base. KAMC's Matthew Stell got a chance to speak with those attorneys and one of the local clients they're representing.
Yeah, Brian and Lauren, they tell me it's something they've been working on for over a year and a half now, combing through millions of documents, interviews, investigations, and now they're pretty confident that the case they've got will hold certain companies responsible. For 10 years, Mike Jackson's lived about 2 miles from what used to be the Reese Air Force Base, using his 3 acres to grow food and eventually start a greenhouse business.
And that's what led me to this place, because I thought it had a great well, reasonably good soil, which I worked for several years to enrich.
You can say all was well until 2019, when the U.S. Air Force told him that there was a good chance his private water well had toxic chemicals in it.
And they found that my well was contaminated, over 70 parts per trillion, and that means it meets the EPA contamination requirement for non-drinkable for human. And you could assume that it's also concentrated in the soil now.
Soil that Jackson and dozens of his neighbors also grew their crops in.
I grow 2,000 pounds of butternut squash every year, and cantaloupes, watermelons, sugar babies with the little seeds where you can just eat the seeds. Oh, that's what got me, and that actually what poisoned me.
Jackson says as time went on, everybody in that area got sick, and at one point, saying his illness felt like a slow death.
Crippling testicle pain and kidney problems, which are classic symptoms of PFAS poisoning.
A highly toxic chemical found in firefighting foams used pretty frequently at Reese. But as years went by, the material slowly seeped into the underground water supply, exposing residents to liver disease, ulcerative colitis, and even cancer.
They knew for decades that these chemicals were bioaccumulative, that they would persist in the environment, and that they would accumulate in people's blood, and that they could potentially cause harmful injuries to humans.
Lanciotti works for Napoli, Shkolnik, a New York law firm who's filed a federal class action lawsuit on behalf of Jackson and other neighbors against the makers of these foams, saying that they continue to sell the product to the military, knowing it could be dangerous.
In the future, they're going to need replacements of their private well. They're going to need treatment on their private well. And that's cost that should not be borne by the community, and it shouldn't be borne by the taxpayers. That should be paid for by the chemical companies, because those are the ones who truly did the wrong that we're talking about.
Lanciotti says property values have also gone down as well, but for now, his firm's goal is to hold those manufacturers accountable.
Especially in the Lubbock community, that this is one aquifer, everyone's drawing from the same aquifer. We have private wells, there's no other option.
Something Jackson, unfortunately, knows all too well.
Personally, I'm not in this for the money at all, but I would like to be compensated for the work that I did out here.
And what are you growing now?
Nothing.
Now, this lawsuit isn't against the Air Force, who tested every water well in the area and found that at least 500 of them had been contaminated. Napoli Shkolnik says those Lubbock residents aren't the only ones demanding justice or some sort of compensation. Similar things have happened in places like New York and Florida as well. Lauren?